everyone. Welcome to the Zoomer Boomer Healthy Aging for Seniors program. And it's great to see everybody here. And I'm going to pass this over to Susan Flowers to start today's webinar.
Well, yeah, thank you again, just like Alan said. And we are very honored today to have Ellen and her expertise. And she will be our presenter. So I believe I'm passing it over to Bridget right now.
Hi, thank you. I'm not really sure what more to add. I think we introduced Ellen, so I think that I can pass the mic over to you, Ellen.
Yeah, sure.
In the paint session.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's nice to meet you. If I haven't met you before in the various different capacities I've been involved with LPO, it's nice to meet you now. And if I have, it's nice to see you again. I do have a super duper quick little slideshow. It's like 4 slides long, just to kind of introduce the concept of art and art making and art practice as it pertains to healthy living, and also to quickly introduce myself so that you guys get a little bit of an idea about who I am and what I'm all about. So I am just going to quickly share my screen, if that's all right. And I want to do, there we go. All right, can everyone see that properly?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so
Yes,
a quick introduction for myself. My name is Ellen. I've been involved with Little People of Ontario since 2017. That was when LPO hosted, with collaboration with Camp Maple Leaf, its first Camp LPO. And ever since then, I've been working with LPO in different ways, doing research and communications, volunteer opportunities, the Christmas dinner I've done a number of times with Camp LPO. So those are a couple of pictures of myself. Half of these kids are like teenagers now. They're not little kids anymore. And then there's a photo of myself and Alan as well. I think last fall, actually. So yeah, that's my involvement with LPO. It's a great organization that I've been happy to get to continue doing these volunteer opportunities with. And then as far as myself personally goes, I refer to myself as a lifelong student, both literally and metaphorically. I have a passion for art, for working with kids and being outdoors. I am also an artist. I'm a pyrographer, which means that I do wood burning. One of my wood burning pieces is up there on the screen right now. I knit. A hiker. I call myself a camp kid. I grew up at summer camp and I still work at summer camp. And I am an educator. I hold my master's in art history and visual culture from the University of Guelph. I got that in 2021. And now I'm currently pursuing my B.Ed with Brock University. And like I said, I continue to work with kids in the outdoors. That's a photo of myself from this past summer. In Algonquin Park, where I was working as the program director at an all-girls canoe trip camp. So who I am is very much shaped by the people I work with and being in the outdoors, and being able to create and explore and gain new experiences through the arts and through the outdoors. So today we're going to talk a little bit about art in terms of healthy aging. As the therapeutic world develops, there's been more and more attention placed on how having a creative practice and how creating art is beneficial to people of all ages. And then I do have a couple of quick facts here just to summarize some of those ways. To begin, art is a safe and secure way to channel stress and other negative emotions into action. It allows us to express inner feelings in a way that words often do not. And obviously, art is not unique in this capacity. People enjoy music and recreation and other forms of inner expression for different reasons. But art is certainly gaining more and more recognition as a fantastic opportunity for channeling emotions. It can quite literally activate the reward pathways in our brains, so the little neural pathways that click on the serotonin boosts. And when we have an art practice and those little serotonin boosts are continuously clicked on, art can have the ability to improve overall mood and sense of happiness and well-being in your life. It is a hands-on process, which I think is one of the reasons why I find it so rewarding. It forces you to focus, and in doing so, art makers instinctually and inherently have a mindfulness practice as well. And then it is also very beneficial to the management, like I said earlier, of depression and anxiety disorders, and some of the more psychological or mental implications that are associated with long-term physical health challenges. And it has been linked to improved memory, reasoning, and resilience in healthy older people. So whether you consider yourself an artist or not, art is a very, very healthy, very rewarding practice to get into for people of all ages. And before we get into the actual art lesson that I have for you guys today, I want to sort of attack the like, I'm not an artist block that a lot of people put up for themselves. In my experience, whether I'm working with children or older folks, and working with them in the capacity of making art, one of the biggest blockages that I see people put up for themselves is like, well, I don't know how to do that. And art is the same as it is with any other skill that you learn in life. Like I like to say to them, you didn't know your ABCs before somebody taught it to you, and you didn't know mathematics before somebody taught it to you, and you don't get good at your favorite sport without practicing and training. So, you know, art is something that you have to be taught a little bit how to do, and it's also something that takes time and practice to get good at. But most importantly, I also think that you don't have to instinctually or inherently be good at doing something to be able to enjoy it. So I want to get rid of the idea that art is transactional and that you have to be good at it, and you have to be able to monetize it, and you have to think to yourself, this is something that somebody would want to hang in their house. You can make art purely because you enjoy it and for no other reason besides that. So first and foremost today, like I guess a little mantra that I want us to go forward with is remember that art making is about joy. So I hope that you guys are able to enjoy this class that I have for you guys today. Oops. And that is the end of the slideshow. So I'm going to pop that in here and I'm going to stop sharing. But yeah, that is, that's the gist of what we're going to be doing today. I am now, Alan, do you think that you could, I'm going to quickly join from my phone. Do you think you could just allow me to join the meeting so that I can show people what I have in front of me? I'm going to be joining from my phone as well so that you guys can see what I am working on from my table, because the nature of watercolor paint is that you can't really, you can't do it like standing upright because the colors will bleed. So give me 1 second just to open my Zoom app here. Great.
Yeah, and I let you in.
Great, no audio. Got it.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
there's a whole tech behind this.
And I want to flip my camera. Perfect. Nope, that's not what I want. Here we go. Okay,
So then I want to turn you off spot and then put, are we ready for that?
Yeah, and then if you want to pin that, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. All right, so can everybody see that properly? My paper here on my tabletop should be the main, the biggest block on your screen. Does that work for everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Okay.
Yep.
Fantastic. Okay, so guys, welcome to your art lesson. I'm going to quickly show you what I plan on walking you guys through today. In tune with the change of the seasons, I wanted to teach you guys how to make your own watercolor fall leaves. So I have a couple of examples here. As I was saying, Alan, before, who I am as a person is I grew up at summer camp, so I always have to have an example craft ready to go with me. So I'm going to show you guys those right now. So I have one version here that I inked. See if I can get into focus for you. There we go. So I put ink on this one. That's totally optional if you want to do that after the fact. We're not going to include that as part of the craft today because we didn't supply you guys with the pens. But if you have ink pens at home, black ink that you would like to do this with, you're totally free to. I work more so in like wood burning and printmaking. So I like this illustrative finished look. But if you prefer sort of a more soft, realistic watercolor painted look, then that is totally also something you can do with that. I'll let that be artist's choice. It's up to you. But this is what we're going to be making today. You also don't have to cut them out. I did that more just for the sake of convenience of being able to flip through and show them to people. If you would prefer to frame your finished piece and hang it on your wall or turn it into greeting cards for Thanksgiving, you could cut them out as well and use them to decorate your home, cover the Thanksgiving table with them. Whatever it is that you would like to do is up to you. This is your craft. It's up to you to decide how you want to go forward with it. But before we do that, I want to teach you guys a couple of the very basic techniques, as well as some common mistakes and easy fixes for watercolor in case this is your first time doing it, in case you're feeling relatively inexperienced. I'm going to give you guys a couple of the tips and tricks that are necessary to learn how. And I will say this before I get started, watercolor is a very beginner-friendly form of art making. It's a very forgiving medium, which means that even when you do make mistakes, there is very easy solutions for correcting them. And even if you do make mistakes and you're like, no, I botched it, just remember this is all just for fun anyways. So don't be too hard on yourselves. So first things first, we've got our materials. We should all have the same brushes. For myself, for the actual painting, I'm going to use my round brushes. Round brushes are the most versatile paintbrush to use in watercolor because the shape of the brush holds water and is the most easy to manipulate on paper. It's very good for getting around like curves and edges. For the quick demo on techniques that I'm going to do for you guys, I'll be using a straight brush. That's the more square shaped one. I will allow you guys to choose for the practice which brush size you want to use, whether you want to use one of the flat brushes, whether you want to use the round brushes here. I will tell you right now as a quick tip, the bigger the brush, the more bristles you have, the more water it's going to hold, and you'll see why that matters as we work through and practice. But having too much water on your page isn't always what you want, and by the same token, having not enough water on the page is also not ideal. So when you're selecting your brush size, you may want to go for something, just as we're learning, that's middle ground, just to make it a little bit easier for you guys. So get these out of here. And I should have mentioned earlier, if everybody has a glass of clean water ready to go, then that's perfect. One of the keys to proper watercolor is to make sure that your brush stays wet, and also to make sure that you're removing all the like muddy colors from your brush as well in between each color change. So you're going to want to have some clean water with you. So let's start on our wet on wet technique. So this is a technique that is best used for applying a general color wash. That basically means the color that you're starting with, that you are going to add detail onto after the fact. So to start that, you need to wet your paper. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a wet brush with wet paint on wet paper. So you don't want to saturate the paper. But there should be, just with clear water, sort of a glossiness to the page. So see if you can see it at all on my camera. You might not be able to, but no, you can't really see it on my paper. But when you tilt the page, you should see just a little bit of a sheen. If it's running, if it's pooling, then that means that we've got too much water on the page. The easiest way to fix that is just to take a little corner of your paper towel and just to dab it, just to soak it up a little bit. And I'm going to use blue to teach you guys, to walk you guys through these steps, because it's very vibrant and it's easy to see. But you can use whatever color you'd like. So I'm literally just using the packaging the paint came in as a palette. Use whatever you have available to you. I've got some pure pigmentation right here in the cobalt blue on my palette. And now I am going to pull in with a bit of water and create a puddle of color. Okay? And one of the common mistakes people make when they're watercoloring is they wet their brush and then pull straight from the pigment. You want to create a puddle of water before you put it on the paper, okay? It's going to be much, much easier to make the paint do what you want if you are mixing it in water first rather than pulling directly from the pure pigment. So I'm going to quickly soak my page here just because I let it dry while I was talking with clear water. So I've got my wet page. I'm going to go in now with a wet brush with wet paint on it, and I am going to put it directly on that wet surface. And you guys can start messing around with how you like to do this. Get comfortable with manipulating the paint a little bit, how you want to hold your brush. I'll let you guys mess around a little, but that is the wet on wet technique. And we are going to use it as the first building block in creating our leaves as we work through this. All right, and you can see this is how it dries. If it dries correctly with this nice even coat, that means that you have the correct ratio of water on the page. All right. So as you guys feel free to continue experimenting with that. Listen to my voice as I move on to the next step. This is the wet on dry method. So what you're going to do for wet on dry is you use a wet brush on dry paper. We're not going to wet the paper beforehand, but I'm just going to give my brush another quick rinse. We are going to go in with the water that we just used. Maybe you need to make your pool of water a little bit bigger like I do. Mix it around nice and good. And then on wet paper, or on dry paper, you're going to apply your color. And this technique is best for layering colors on. So if you are adding shading or maybe some more subtle details without harsh lines, then you would be using the wet on dry technique. All right? And you'll be able to see right now that I used the same amount of paint on this brush stroke as I did on the wet on wet, but as you're already starting to be able to see, the more water you have on your paper, the more like watered out your color is going to be when you apply it, okay? So it should come as no surprise then that the dry on dry technique is a dry brush or an almost completely dry brush. So just dab it on your paper towel, get as much water out of it as you can on dry paper. So rather than going into that pool of water, as you can see, I'm just drawing directly from my pigment, getting it, saturating the brush a little bit with that. And then you just start applying it directly to dry paper. And this is more of a finishing technique. It isn't something you would really use for applying your color washes. this is something that's really good for achieving texture, or if you're going to apply small details, like maybe if you're trying to add something with, more precise lines, more clear lines, you would apply it with a drier brush on drier paper. But those are our 3 basic techniques, okay? And we are going to use all 3 of them in the course of painting these fall leaves, in that order, in fact. So we'll start by doing our wet on wet. We'll allow our wet paper to dry before we start adding details with the wet on dry method. And then any finishing details that you would like if you would like to add stems and veins to your leaves, then we'll do that finally. And the last step with dry on dry. Okay? How does everybody feel about that? Does anyone want more time practicing those different techniques before I cover some of the common mistakes and fixes? All good? Can I move on to the next thing?
Yeah, I got it.
Fantastic. Okay, so a couple of really common mistakes that are totally normal to make as you're beginning to explore a new art medium. Too much water, I think, is probably the most common mistake that I see in watercolor. So what that means is, let's say I'm completely saturating this page, and then I come in with a whole bunch of water. What's going to happen, and I'll tilt my paper a little bit so you can see it. You can see how the paint is starting to pool, right? And what that is going to do when it dries is it's going to dry unevenly. So the easiest and best and quickest method for fixing this is to simply take a piece of paper towel and blot it out. And if the water is really fresh on the page, you can probably actually remove the color entirely, like that. And then just go over it again using the correct amount of water this time. So just dial it back a little bit. Okay? So like I said, very beginner-friendly type of paint, type of medium. It's very easy to correct these basic mistakes. Great. Alternatively, another common issue, I'm going to get my brush completely dry, is when people apply not enough water. So if you're doing the dry on dry method, obviously that is intentional, but sometimes people will apply it I think what happens most, people make this mistake most when they're trying to get a very vibrant color, and they're worried if they put too much water on the page, that vibrancy is going to be lost. But part of the beauty, I think, of watercolor is that you can see the texture of the page underneath, and that it does dry with this like nice, soft, kind of non-defined finished look. So you do still want to have water in there, and you can absolutely still achieve a vibrant finished effect, but you do need to have enough water on your page. So you can see how that just looks a lot nicer. And if you feel that it's not vibrant enough, you can just layer some more on. But you're still going to get a nice, like you can see that quite clearly. It's still a nice vibrant blue. Okay? So mess around a little bit with that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, a really important tip is if you are finding you're having a hard time striking the right ratio of water and paint on your paper, the issue might be the size of the brush that you're using, okay? Like I said, a larger brush is going to hold more water than a small brush. So if you are finding I've got too much water on the page, switch down a size. If you're finding I don't have enough water, I can't keep my page wet long enough to paint on it, then maybe you need to size up. And that's another common fix. And then lastly, this happens all the time. Obviously, we're dealing with a very watery medium, so splatters like that are common. They're accidents. We rarely do them on purpose. Same way that you can fix the too much water mistake is go in as quickly as you can and blot up the water. And it won't get rid of it completely from the page, but it does make it almost impossible to see. Okay? So those are a couple of the very basic techniques. I am now going to rinse my my brush off, and I'm going to move on to the next step, which is color applications, okay? These are the 3 stages that we're going to work through as we paint our fall leaves. So the first thing that we're going to do, I'm going to teach you how to apply watercolors to achieve what we call color bleeding. And that's when you use the wet on wet technique to mix 2 colors in very soft, very, again, like non-defined patches of color, okay? We don't want it to be murky, but we do want the colors to be able to bleed into each other nicely and smoothly. So since we are using our wet on wet technique, with fresh, clean water, make sure your brush doesn't have any color left in it. You're going to apply water, clean water, to your page. And in this case, I decided to go with yellow and browns for this leaf. And actually, I just caught myself in a mistake. I should have mixed my colors before I did that, but that's okay. Just means I might have to wet the page again before I can use them. So I'm just going to take a little bit of yellow. I'm using the lemon yellow and a bit of the yellow ochre. Yellow ochre is a painter's best friend. Every painter that you know will probably have yellow ochre somewhere in their arsenal because it mixes very, very nicely with other colors to create this like beautiful organic color. And I'm going to mix it with this yellow right now just to bring down the super lemony tone in the yellow, just to make it a little bit more autumnal looking. Okay, so I've mixed my paints. I've got my little pool of water.
Ellen, sorry, I had to go to the kitchen to get some fresh water.
Okay.
Sorry, so you're just mixing your yellow and your lemon yellow and orchid, right?
And ochre, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, dear. Sorry.
No worries at all. Okay, so I've got my wet brush, and then what I do is I just go into it. I start dabbing the color on. I personally prefer the dab effect for laying down my color wash, but that is up to you. And then the brown that I'm going to choose to use is the burnt sienna. I'm going to put a little bit here too. Mix my colors in there, and while the paper is still wet, I'm going to start dabbing that color in there. And maybe you'll decide that you want to mix those 2 pools of color together on your palette. This is entirely up to you. There is no right or wrong way to apply these colors because nature doesn't really take into account consistency or any rules when it makes its fall colors. Right? They appear as they appear. So, apply them as you would like, where you think looks good. Think about maybe what it would look like in nature, but give yourself a little bit of creative freedom in how you apply it. So that's how you achieve a color wash or color bleed. Okay? And then what you're going to do is you are going to leave it alone before we move on to the next steps. But the next steps, I'm not going to walk us through. I'm going to do that as we do the actual fall leaf pieces that we're going to. This is just, I find, the most tricky stage in the, because it's the first step, I find this is the most tricky in getting right. So I wanted to walk us through how to do a color bleed. And then the details and the shading we will add with our wet on dry and our dry on dry techniques as we move along. Okay, so does everybody anyone have questions, feel confident about what we're doing? Want any questions or any answers before we move on to the actual painting of our leaves? Or are we feeling good? All right, so I'm going to get this out of here. I can come back to it if you'd like. And I'm going to put this paint to the side. I'm not going to use blue. You can put blue in your leaves if you'd like. It's your painting, but I am going to go with more natural tones for this. And I'm going to grab a pencil. So does everybody have a pencil ready and available with them? Good. Okay. So I'm going to give you guys a quick walk through on how to quickly draw different types of leaves. Okay. Don't panic. I know that you guys were not prepared for a drawing class. I promise we're not doing complicated drawings. These are very simple lines. Okay. So I want to start us with an easy leaf to draw. We're going to do a yellow birch. So the way that you achieve this yellow birch shape, I'm going to do a single line down the middle. This is going to be the stem of my leaf. And then something that people often do is they immediately go in and do the shape of the outside of the leaf, of the edges. I'm going to encourage you guys instead to draw the veins first and then fill in the shape around those, okay? I find it's much easier to draw a leaf this way. So with the yellow birch leaf, we are going to have 8 veins going out just like so. They don't have to be perfectly uniform, but you're going to have 4 on each side, okay? And they should go out the furthest on the bottom 3. And then a birch leaf also has a kind of more jagged, spiky appearance to its leaf. And you're just gonna finish it like that, okay? And again, doesn't have to be uniform because nature very seldom is. Sometimes it is, but typically, like the curves and the spikes and the edges that you see in nature do have variation, okay? So don't feel bad if your leaf doesn't look perfect. It's probably more accurate to real life than not, okay? Next, we are going to do what I consider to be my favorite type of leaf personally, and that's an aspen leaf. It's also a pretty easy shape to draw, okay? What we're gonna do is, again, we're gonna start with another line down the middle. There's our stem, and we're going to, again, do 4 veins. The aspen leaf is more circular than the birch leaf. So the veins I'm actually going to do up like this. We're going to do 4 on each side again. Okay, can everyone see that? And then similar to the birch, the aspen has got sort of more spiked outer edge. So we're going to do it like that. And if you're not thrilled about the appearance of it, you're totally at liberty to grab your eraser, change things around. I'm going to add a little bit more of a spiked edge down at the bottom. And there's our aspen leaf, okay? Wonderful. Next, we are going to shake things up a little bit with a white oak, okay? So white oak is one of my favorite shapes of leaf to draw. It's just got like, I don't know, a very satisfying finished appearance to it. So the way that you achieve a white oak, again, you've got your line down the middle, we've got our stem, and then the white oak is going to have 6 veins going out, okay? 3 on each side. So 1, 2, 3. There we go. So we've got our 6 veins. And then the oak has sort of like a bump on each part of its leaf. Okay, so where each of your veins goes, that is a different branch of your leaf. And each one is going to have just kind of like a little bump, and the bottom 2 is just 1. Does that make sense? Here, I'll move my paint started there, move this up a bit. There's your oak. Leave that there for people to catch up. in case I'm going too fast. And again, you can always go in if you notice things that are inconsistent or that you don't like. Like I realize that I don't love the way that the veins are flowing with this particular leaf. You can correct things if you notice them and you say, I don't like how that looks. All right. And then finally, we're going to do a sugar maple. Obviously, a maple is a slightly more intimidating shape to draw. However, I felt like I couldn't do like an Ontario fall leaf painting class and not do a maple because it is obviously like our very iconic fall color. We get that bright red, that really vibrant red. So a sugar maple has three. I'm going to actually move it over. I can already tell I'm going to run out of space. Has three stems instead of one going off of each other like that. See if you can move it over here so you can see better. Three stems, okay? And each of those three stems is going to have two veins going off of them. Okay? And each of those veins is going to be a point, end in a point. And just like our oak leaf, the maple has two solo points just at the end, like that. Okay. Mine's a little bit squished on the page, but that's okay. All right, so I'm going to give everybody a chance to finish what they're doing before I move on to the color wash. If you have any corrections you want to make, or if you're spending a little bit more time on one particular leaf, that's fine. And again, keep in mind, things don't have to be perfect and uniform. They very seldom are in nature. All right, I'm just going to label these. Okay, how are we feeling? Good? Are we ready to add some color?
Okay.
Yes? Okay. So because we already had our yellow combo and our burnt sienna, our yellows and our browns, let's start this off with our yellow birch leaf. And also because it's conveniently in the upper right-hand corner, which I feel is often how English speakers tend to travel across the page. So we're going to start there. So first things first, you are going to completely clean off your brush. You can dab it on the paper. If you see color coming out in the water, it means it's not quite clear enough. Once it comes out clean, then you're good. Alrighty. And just as we did with that quick demo, we're doing our wet on wet. So with clear water, we are wetting the inside of our yellow birch leaf. And if you don't get it perfectly in all like the little crevices and all the little cracks, that's okay. Couple of inconsistencies is totally normal. I actually just realized I said I was going to use my round brushes, so I'm switching over to my round brush. I'm going to use the slightly larger one for my color wash. I just find this easier personally to get into all the little shapes and bits and tips and points. But if you find that the flat brush is actually easier for you, go ahead and do whatever you want. There is no rules in art that have to be followed religiously. Okay, so I've started off my my little pool of water there. Just dab some of the water so that I know that my brush isn't holding too much of it. And I'm going to start going in with my yellow color, okay? And again, I like to dab the paints on. I find that it achieves a less streaky look. But if you prefer to like paint it nice and smoothly on like that, go for it. Alrighty. And without waiting, I'm going to move in now with my burnt sienna. I'm going to mix it in with some of that yellow just to achieve a less contrasted color. And I'm going to start placing brown where I would like to see brown. Let's pretend that the edges of this leaf are starting to crisp up. You don't have to go at the same speed that I am. If you certainly don't have to place things in the same spots that I am either. Just do whatever feels right for you. If you want your leaf to be entirely yellow, you can do that. It's up to you. But just continue to place the colors as they feel like they make sense and where they look good for you. Okay? And once you're happy with how things look, I'm going to add just a touch more yellow in here. But once you're happy with how things look, then just leave it. And we're going to let it dry now, okay? I will give everyone a moment just to catch up, a few more seconds. And once you are done placing colors, you are going to rinse your brush completely clean again. And I will also say right now, this meeting is being recorded. So if as we're moving through this, you guys realize that you have to run, and if you can't stay until the very end, that's perfectly okay. I'm sure that we can share the recorded version with you if you would like to be able to finish your piece. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no pressure to feel like you have to sit and finish it all at once. I'm actually very, very guilty of taking a long time to finish the stuff that I make. There's days where I'll spend like 3 minutes on something and be like, okay, I think I need to come back to this in like 4 weeks. So feel free to move at your own pace. I am going to start painting the aspen leaf now. So with my clear water, I'm going to apply a nice coat of water. Remember not to saturate the page, just get a nice glossy finish. And you know what? I can actually see that on my yellow birch, I've got a little bit more pooling than I would like. So I'm just going to pick some of that up. Go. Wonderful.
Ellen, I find it very very calming and soothing.
It is very calming, isn't it? And people who watercolor, that seems to be the general reason why they do. It does achieve a very calming effect. There's something about the medium itself that is just, it's very serene. It's nice.
Yes.
So I'm glad that it's making you feel that way. Okay, I'm applying some yellow. With my aspen, I think I'm going to add some red tones to this. So I made the same mistake I made earlier. I forgot to mix my reds, but that's okay. That's, just full transparency. Even people who are experienced and paint and do this all the time also make mistakes. So I'm going to take it's called Vermilion. It's the nice bright red in there. I'm going to put a little bit on my palette. Make my pool. And I am also going to draw a little bit of the yellow into this, just, I don't know, just to balance out the tones a bit. And I'm going to start blotting in the reds on my aspen. I think I'm going to focus more of the reds down towards the bottom of this leaf as opposed to the top. I think I'm going to leave it mostly yellow up there. Okay. There we go. I'm happy. Maybe just a bit more yellow up here. But I think I'm pretty happy with how that looks. Great. I'll give everyone another moment to keep working. I can see that I might need to be putting a little less water on mine. I can see that the yellow birch is still pretty wet. So this is a good thing, a good practice to get into as you're watercoloring. Keep an eye on how the rest of your piece is drying. That means that I'll probably just need to put a little bit less water into my other ones because when we do those details, we're going to want those paints to be completely done drying before we try adding stuff in. Because if it is still wet, if we try to do a dry on wet technique and we wind up putting wet on wet, then what's going to happen is those colors are going to bleed and we're going to lose the fine details that we want at the end.
Ellen, in watercolor, do you want to see the strokes or not?
It depends on what you're trying to achieve. For color bleeds, you want to avoid a streakiness, but if the paint is still wet, first of all, you could blot it up if you would prefer, but give it a second to dry as well if you're interested in experimenting with that, because you might find that the streaks actually dry less streaky than you expect them to. So if you prefer to just blot it up and start over, that is completely up to you. That's your prerogative. But you can also give it a chance to dry and see if it's actually as streaky as you think. Okay. So once again, I'm going to come into this with some yellow, except I've now muddied my other yellow with brown and red. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with some fresh yellow. And I think I want my oak to have a little bit of green in it. So this is more of an in transition leaf. So I've got two pure yellows and greens. I've used the vermilion, or sorry, not vermilion, the viridian. I'm going to mix those together to make just kind of like a greeny yellow tone. Great. I think I'm happy with that. And start applying it. Can drag the colors around if you prefer more of a using more of a stroke technique than the blotting that I was using. I think I want more yellow in this than what I'm getting. So that's easy enough to do. And I think as I move towards the bottom of this leaf, I would like it to end with maybe a little bit of brown in it. So go back into my yellow ochre, mix that in with the yellow color that I was working with. And I can see that my page is starting to dry out a bit too. So all I have to do is add more water to my brush to fix that. And I'm going to end it with a nice kind of ochre-y finished look. So as it is with any art medium, but you'll probably start picking up, you've probably already started picking up on it actually. This is and this comes back to when we talk about art as a mindfulness practice. You become aware of what is happening on your paper. You realize, oh, I need more water, or oh, that was too much water, or whatever. And you start to become better at reading those little cues. And that does translate to a strong mindfulness practice, being able to tune in and focus on what you're working with. Okay, I think I like colors that I've got there. Wonderful. My yellow birch feels like it's just about dry. It's almost there, so that's good. Maybe give a quick check on how your other leaves that you've already painted are drying. And now with my sugar maple, I definitely want some reds because I feel like that is very quintessential of those like bright autumnal red maples that you get in Ontario. So I'm going to use the colors that I had already mixed up here, but if you need to apply fresh ones to your palette, that's really fine. But as you can see, I've got a nice orange worked here. And then I also want to I'm going to take my vermilion. I'm going to start a new pool over here. And I am going to bust out now my crimson red. And I'm going to mix this with my vermilion. Just to, again, just to kind of like balance out the tones, make it look a little bit more organic. However, red maples are like quite vibrant, so I'm not going to brown it out too much. Great. Okay, I have my colors mixed. I'm going to rinse my brush again. And then with my fresh, clean brush, for one final time, I'm going to wet this final leaf.
Yeah, oh. Oh, it's not too much. Okay.
Has anybody decided to go off and do their own fall colors or their own leaf shapes at all? I'm always curious if people are doing the same as I'm doing or if they've gone rogue and they're doing their own thing.
No, it's just ending up that way.
Right, yeah,
I'd have
Yeah.
to agree
That's
with that.
okay. That's
Yeah.
totally okay.
no intention. It looks,
if-
it looks different and unique.
That's
Yeah.
good. I personally am my personal belief is that if everyone's looked the exact same at the end, then we didn't actually do art making as art is supposed to be, right? Like everybody's should look a little bit different and should feel unique and personalized.
And it's okay, as long as you have fun.
Precisely. Okay. So my last leaf there is wet. Now I'm going to go in with this. I'm going to do the orange before I do the red. I should have mentioned that earlier, but if you didn't figure it out, it is easier to obviously apply a darker color on top of a lighter color than the other way around. Neat. My reds.
What a good afternoon this is.
Good. I'm so glad.
And I have Andre Bocelli and my friends here. So what more do you want?
I like that outlook. It is a beautiful day.
Yeah, it's beautiful here.
It's my partner's birthday, so we're going out for dinner tonight, which is exciting.
Oh, lovely. What are you gonna?
Yeah.
Where are you gonna? What kind
We are
of food?
going.
Sorry.
We are going for pizza and beer tonight. Nothing fancy, but
That's good.
it's good pizza. It's good pizza. So
Well, good pizza is hard to find.
yeah.
I just mentioned at our executive. Well, yeah, you were there, Elaine. That I saw. Yeah, I'll tell Debbie and Daryl that I saw fantastic movie. Haunting in Paris. No, Venice. It was very good.
Haunting.
All right. I'll let everyone catch up. I've got my color washes in though. So give yourselves a chance to finish up what you're doing. And I do think that my birch and my aspen leaf have dried up enough. So once everyone's ready, I'm going to go into the next step, which is adding some details. But you'll be happy to know that we actually are past the most technically difficult stage of this painting exercise.
We already used this one. Too dark.
All right. feel free to keep moving at whatever pace you are. I'm just going to start verbalizing what I'm doing. So I have switched out my larger round brush. I'm going in with a smaller one. This one is going to be more useful for fine details. And as you should always do, give it just a little pet. Make sure that it feels mostly dry. You can check to see how wet the page is in 2 different ways. One, turn it to the side. If you see that glossy sheen, it's definitely still too wet. Give it more time. If it doesn't have a sheen, just give it a little pat. And if you don't feel any moisture coming off, you're probably ready to start painting and layering up and adding your details. So on my yellow birch, I'm going to, I think I'm going to add, and again, this is using our now wet on dry method. So the paper is dry, but the brush is wet. I think I'm going to add in a little bit of shading. So along the veins of my leaf, and you can do this however you want. Maybe the light is laying differently on your leaf, so you don't need to add shading. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add a little bit of like almost just like a shade along here, just to give the impression of a shadow line. See how that's starting to look? And this is what I mean when I say that the wet on dry method is much more useful for layering and for details, that you prefer to be soft and more minute. If you want the details to be more precise, which we're going to add later on, then you'll use the dry on dry method, but we're not quite there yet. Okay, so I've got my details on my yellow birch. I can feel that the sugar maple and the white oak are still a bit too wet, but the aspen I think is good. So I'm going to do something similar with that. Although I think in this case, I'm going to crisp up the edges a little bit. So just add a little bit of brown around the edge, just to make those tips look a little bit more, a little more aged. Playing with the natural shape of that outer edge to guide me. And with this stage, I really do encourage you guys to kind of just play around with what you think looks good. Get creative, take a little bit of ingenuity upon yourself, and maybe the crisping on this part of the leaf is a little more speckled than, like smooth. Do whatever it is that feels good. I personally find this technique the most satisfying. I think I enjoy doing the wet on dry technique the most. Okay, got my aspen. How are we doing down here? Pretty dry, but I'm gonna give that one a few more minutes. Allow you guys to keep moving at whatever pace you're at. Does anyone have any Thanksgiving plans coming up? Anyone traveling or going anywhere? We're mostly sticking around.
Nope, I'm sticking around.
Yeah. Got family up in Huntsville, so that's as far as we're going for Thanksgiving. But
Oh, that's a beautiful place to go for Thanksgiving.
it will be beautiful. There'll be fall colors up there by that time, so I'm
Oh, yeah.
excited for that. Yeah. And they've got a cute little farm. They've got some goats and some chickens, so it'll be nice.
Oh, that'd be lovely.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Gina, when are you
Okay.
gonna get some chickens up there? They're on mute, so I'll ask to unmute and to see if any thoughts of chickens. Oh, Carol's gonna.
There we go.
Chickens and bees are next spring.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, bees and chickens.
Bees and chickens? Oh, I'm so jealous. I looked into St. Catherine's laws on keeping chickens in your backyard, actually.
I used to
4
live in
hens, no roosters.
the Niagara region. We used to live there. Now we're in Alberta.
Yeah.
Alberta Beach. We're making a forest. Totally different.
Great. I have moved on to my white oak, and because I decided to do this one as like more of an in transition fall leaf, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to crisp up my edges up here too much where I've got the green, because I want to keep in mind of what I would be seeing, what would look natural on the leaf. So I'm just going to keep this portion of my detailing minimal, and I'm going to keep it down here. But do whatever you want with yours, as has been the general message through this whole thing. Right. And I believe that the sugar maple is finally ready for some color as well. So how's everyone coming along? No shame, what's stage are you guys at? You could still be laying your color washes on for all I care, but how's everyone doing?
We're,
Good.
I'm playing around with what you're doing, but
Yeah.
yeah, the techniques really do require practice, though. Oh
They
my goodness.
absolutely do.
Yeah.
And I mean, like anything, right? This isn't the first time I've watercolored. So if yours doesn't look the exact same as mine, don't hold it against yourself. It just means,
Yeah.
and if you enjoyed it and you're like, yeah, I wish that I knew those techniques a little bit better, then I would encourage you to keep practicing.
Yeah, we had spoken before, and it's sort of always mystified me. And you're right. You lay it out, you get taught a little bit, and you practice, right? It's like
Yeah.
anything on that fine.
I know what you mean about being just like kind of mystified by it though. Like I remember when I was living with my old roommates during my undergrad, all three of them could sing, and I was the only one who like could not carry a tune to save my life. And it was always like insane to me. I was like, how can you just all sing? Like, how do you just all have that ability? And they're like, yeah, but you can draw and paint, and none of us can do that. I was like, fair enough. So, it's all about, yeah, it's all about what what calls to you, what you enjoy doing, and then making the commitment to practice it, right?
Yeah. But I mean, you sing. I mean, all that stuff at camp and
Camp singing.
yeah. So good.
No, I've always been very jealous of people who can sing though, because I feel like it's a very easy to like pull out talent to impress people with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we all have, yeah, I truly believe, God's has given each one of us special, unique gifts
Yeah.
to share.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely correct in that. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't all have the same gift.
Well, yeah, if we all could do the same things, then
Yeah.
what would be the point? Okay, I am finally, I think, going to move on to my very last stage. So, like I've said before, keep working at what you're working at. Don't feel the need to rush to keep up with what I'm doing. But I am going to use my dry on dry method, which means I'm going to get that brush almost completely dry, not totally, so that I'm no longer able to like put the pigments on the paper effectively. But I'm going to now go in and I'm going to basically work the stem and the veins, add the details on that. I'm going to use a very light hand because I don't want the lines work to be too thick. And another useful tip that I have kind of this is just through my being an artistic mind and somebody who spends a lot of time in nature, when filling in the color of the stem, I have noticed that it tends to be the more dominant color in the leaf. Okay. So like, and by dominant, I mean the color that is like darkest, most pigmented in the leaf. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to do it brown, but in the case of the sugar maple, I'm going to do it red. Okay. This one, I'm going to do it the yellow, right? Okay. So keep in mind that it's just kind of a little useful tip that I've picked up on for rendering leaves a little bit more, autumn leaves anyways, more realistic. Okay. And as like, that's very much the type of thing, like the more art you make, the more you notice those things intuitively. Well, while I'm out in nature, I just pay attention to that stuff now more than I think I used to. So just a useful little tip. That, and also the end of the stem is usually a little bit thicker than the rest, right? So
True.
Draw it out just a little bit there. And while I do the vein work, I'm gonna, like I said, use a very light hand. And if if like the lines in your stems don't perfectly connect, meaning, maybe I can show you what I mean. Like you can see here that there's like my hand, because I was being so light with it, it kind of jumped. That's fine. That to me looks more natural, because obviously when we're working with art mediums, we have to manipulate it a little bit to make them appear the way that nature just naturally creates images. But there's very rarely like harsh lines in nature either. So I am going to not worry about it if my lines don't perfectly connect. If they go a little bit wonky, that's fine.
Wonky's good.
Wonky is good. And maybe you want to add just a couple little like crisped up edges, more finite details. You can do that too if you feel like it. Again, this is the layering on of details. Always keeping in mind how wet or not wet your brush is, whether you need to add water, remove water. In this case, my brush is pretty dry, but not so dry that the water is kind of like, that the paint, sorry, is like dragging itself across the page. It's still going on smoothly. And as I look at it, I think I would like to add just a little bit more shading over here. This is why watercolor is such an amazing medium, because it really does allow you to like go back and change things. Okay. And I'm going to call the yellow birch finished, and you can call yours finished whenever you feel content with the way it looks. And at this point now, in the lesson, I don't really have much else to teach, so I'm just going to allow you guys to continue painting as you would like to. We can talk about other stuff. You can have conversation. But yeah, I'm just going to allow you guys to finish this at your own pace. If you decide to come back to it later, you're not going to finish it right now. That's okay. Like I said, I've left things for months before coming back to a project. If the creative urge is hitting you later and you've kind of like, you know, you've exercised all the creativity that you feel like you have for the day, that's fine. Yeah. It's all about just what feels right and what you find enjoyable.
Anybody have any questions here? Other tips and tricks that you might.
Anything that you guys found helpful as you worked through this? Anything that worked better for you?
Yeah.
Because like I said, there is no rule like in art making that has to be followed completely, right? So like for instance, my high school art teacher used to tell us that we are never allowed to use black paint because if you look out in the world, there's almost never black lines, right? Well, like the Impressionist painters would disagree with that, right? So yeah, just because I've taught you a specific technique doesn't mean that that is necessarily what actually worked best for you. So if there's anything that you found useful, feel free to share it.
Guess it takes an eye too to see where the shadows, like I trying to have a hard time to see what should be darker on something, you know?
Yeah. And that, yeah, that does come with time. That comes like once you find the thing that you enjoy, painting or drawing or whatever it might be, I do find that you start paying more attention to those things. So like I'm very drawn towards painting things from the natural world, or wood burning. I actually primarily work in wood burning. And I really like doing sort of like foresty themed things. So when I'm out on my nature hikes, I spend a lot of time looking at the shape of things and the color of things, and how light catches them or doesn't catch them or whatever. So that's just the type of thing that you get more in tune with the more you practice.
I have to train myself to, when I look at a tree, how many shades of green do I see? Because I see just one big blur of green, but actually there's green, there's lime green, there's, you know, all sorts of green.
That's a fantastic practice to get into. And it's actually something in my time that I worked as in outdoor education with grade 7s and grade 8s. That was something I used to actually have them do, as well as another thing that I called 2-foot forest, where I would have them sit down in the middle of the forest and look at what was the ground 2 feet in front of them. And I asked them to count how many different things they saw, right? And after they get past like pine needles and dirt, they start counting like, oh, I saw like 4 different types of insects, or I saw 3 different types of pine needles. And they actually start becoming a little bit more in tune with the details of it, as opposed to just like, oh, I see rocks and I see dirt, right? Okay, well, what color is the dirt? What texture is the dirt, right? Because the forest has all different types of dirt. So yeah, the counting how many different colors in a tree you see is actually a great, it's a good gratitude practice. It's a good mindfulness practice. Yeah, I completely agree.
It helps you to see detail more, which gets
It
so
does. Yeah.
yeah.
Makes you more appreciative of the wonderful nature that we've got.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, the sky, the the forest, everything. It's, if we stop and take time, to look at it and really appreciate it more.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
teaches you how to see things that you don't see necessarily the same things other people see, even though you're looking at the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So to really accept what do I want to say, like differences, because even though we're looking at the same thing, we're seeing somebody's seeing deeper into something than the other person is.
Absolutely. What you're attuned to is different than what the person beside you is experiencing, right?
Yeah.
It's all very subjective.
Yes.
Yeah. We had a wood carving contest in Regina about a month ago.
Yes.
And they showed it on the news, but bottom line was they all, went about carving a bear or a beaver or whatever they chose. But the guy that won, well, he had a very nice one. He did, it was very vivid. But when they interviewed him and said, well, you won, he said, no, I didn't win. He said, this was a cooperative thing. And what they did was they all helped each other as they were carving. They'd go over and say, well, no, I think you should do a little bit of this. And they'd help them with it. They'd take their saw or their knife and they
Really?
yeah, and they'd give their own little touch to it. And so he said, I can't take credit as being the winner. He said it was a group dynamic or a group effect. And he said they all won. And it was pretty neat because all their carvings were really great. It was pretty hard to choose one over the other.
Wow.
That's fantastic. And it's true, being around other creative people inspires more creativity in yourself, right? Whether that be through like feedback, like constructive feedback, or whether it's just like, I don't know, I don't know if it's the energy that they give off that like is inspiring. I don't know, but I completely agree. And I actually we live in St. Catharines, and there was a free art event in Niagara Falls the other day. So we went to that. And there was actually a breakdancing performance going on as part of this art market. And that's like something that's so completely outside of the realm of anything I do. But they were doing all these different types of tricks, like being able to like do these different moves without knocking over a water bottle standing underneath them and stuff, right? And that was a moment for me where I was very much like, see, here's somebody else's creative practice that they have taken time. Like, how many times did this guy have to dance over a water bottle and knock it over before he got good at doing it so that he didn't knock the bottle over, right? So that now he can actually perform it as like a cool trick. It's just, I really strongly believe that everybody needs whatever it is that's their creative outlet, because whether it's in art or whether it's not, I just think that it's so healthy for people to have something that they can practice at that's inspiring to them, that is almost like a filter to channel through, you know?
And take you out of the moment, or take you out of all the noise that's around, and bring you
Precisely.
into the moment.
And anybody that has any emotional problems or sickness or of any kind, art or crafts would really benefit, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
It would help, calm a lot of people down, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
therapeutic for sure.
Yes. Okay, it's not too good here.
And it's good I just stop doing it for a minute here and just let my paper dry, and it's good to step back and then you can see, oh, this could use this, you could see what more details are needed when you step away for a minute.
Yeah. Stepping away, sometimes quite literally, like taking a step back too, especially if you're working on maybe a bigger piece, being able to step back and then actually like notice, like, because when you're working at something really closely, you're looking at small details, right? When you step back, then you can see the whole piece as a picture, and it changes your interpretation of how it looks.
Yes.
That's like Ellen, when I'm working on my big beautiful 1,000-piece puzzles, and I get stumped, right? And then okay, that's it. I haven't put any in 20 minutes or a half hour. So I get up and I walk away, and for a couple hours or maybe the next morning, and then sit down at it, and then you can put 4 or 5 all in, bang bang bang.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a great example, actually. To step away from, like the painting and drawing context.
Well, my oak looks a bit sick, but it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
If anybody is nearing the end of theirs and they feel up to sharing, I also always love seeing what other people work on. You certainly don't have to, but the opportunity is there.
I just love to see everybody's.
Well, I'm enjoying watching you too, Ellen.
Yeah. And you learn from watching like that too, you could see.
Yep.
Oh, completely, yeah.
Oh, Carol wants to show. Here we go. And I'll
Okay,
show
so
you.
we did our own thing. I'll show you my first mess. This is my first
Okay, so
mess.
should I remove spotlight for a minute? Hang on.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and let's,
Can you see it?
yeah, there we go, lower down.
Oh,
We did-
nice.
There you go.
Oh, good.
Oh,
Yeah.
Very nice.
Okay,
very
that's
nice.
us. And then I'll show you what Alex did. This is Alex's painting.
Oh, lovely. I love the color choices.
Yeah.
This is the senior.
And this is the 2-year-old. Is it like this?
Okay, yeah.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah.
Beautiful.
Lot of color.
A lot of color in that one.
That looks like-
So you know what you guys need to do now? You need to make sure that you sign your artwork. Make sure you put your name on it because artists always sign their artwork, okay?
This is my one.
Yeah. And that's
It's
the-
beautiful.
Beautiful.
Oh, you did
Practicing with
Ollie
painting,
is.
how much water versus color. Yeah, that was, okay, show yours. Danielle.
Fantastic.
Very nice.
Those are beautiful. Thank you guys for sharing.
Very
Oh, Gina, can you show
And
her?
No, that's not done.
Gina's is-
maybe if the children put the year and,
Oh, yeah.
and you can go back.
As soon as it dries, as soon as it dries, yes.
Yeah,
still pretty
beautiful.
runny. It's still pretty runny.
Yeah.
This one? Oh, this is the 2-year-old's other one.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
Oh,
lovely.
beautiful. It's a
A little bit
forest.
of help with the leaves.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
Yes. Yeah, okay.
Really
Mine-
nice.
Okay, you can mute us again now, Alan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Date it, sign them when they dry a bit more.
Mine is ready also.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, that was lovely.
Oh, that was fun.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right, I think I'm done with the paints that I'm going to be putting on these. I'll honestly probably go through and outline it the same way I did with this little leaf right here.
Let me zoom in on
Webcam's not going to
your-
pick it up. With
There you
this
go.
leaf right here.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. We'll see if the webcam. Yeah, there we
There
go.
you go. Nice.
Yeah.
Sort of. It's a little pixely, but
It's just
that's
a
just
black-
my personal aesthetic choice. I like the more like folky kind of illustrative appearance of stuff. But like we were just saying, it's all subjective, right? So
Pretty
It's just a
cool.
black ink pen.
yeah, I have black art pens with me. If you don't have like art specific ones for sketching or for illustrating with, that's fine. The only thing I would recommend is not using a ballpoint pen on this type of paper. I think you'll find that it just doesn't sit as smoothly on the surface. So if you have like a black gel pen or just something that's a little bit nicer than a ballpoint, that's what I would recommend using. But you certainly don't have to go out and buy expensive art pens to do that with either. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Ellen. This is again, this is really fun.
It is.
Learning a different technique. I was really quite thrilled to see that it was going to be watercolor. I think I had mentioned earlier that it was it's all a bit of a mystery. I mean, I know that I need to practice a lot, but I certainly learned, some
Oh,
stuff.
nice job.
That's fantastic.
But,
Hey, they're good. They're good.
Yeah. Good
yeah,
job.
it helps, but yeah, boy, technique, and have
Yeah.
to keep practicing this stuff. How's everybody else doing?
Good. And well, this is my little piece. I don't know. I learned a lot today on. Oops, I don't. You have to do it. Shading, like to
Yeah,
get this
yeah.
color.
That's fantastic.
Really
Good
good.
job.
But that was my goal today.
Yeah, it's really,
It's
really
wonderful.
fun.
Yeah.
You guys were like, oh, it doesn't look right, blah, blah, blah. They all look great.
Here's Jeff. Show
No,
yours.
no.
Yes.
I haven't signed it yet.
Show yours.
There's Daryl. Oh, very good. Yeah,
That's wonderful.
Oh, good. Good, Daryl.
it was great theme. There we go. And everybody's clapping here. I'm gonna
Oh,
un
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yay.
Thank you, thank you.
And the kids are putting the stuff up again too, so. Okay, is there anything else? Because I think we're done here. I don't know if you want to have a little chat afterwards. We'll end this, I guess, right now for Ellen.
Okay.
And want to thank Ellen for coming here again and showing us these great techniques and allowing us to relax for a few minutes and focus in on some of these really wonderful experiences and learning something too. So thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much for having me again, because I equally enjoy it. It's nice to have an opportunity to kind of like slow down and not, I hate saying feel bad about making art, because that's something I've been trying to like not feel bad about. Like I don't have to be productive with every hour in order to be filling them, you know, meaningfully. But it is nice to have like an excuse to sit down and do it too. So thank you very much for having me.
Well,
Very welcome.
thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.